Headlines this Wednesday, now on ITV1, it's the lunchtime news.
£31 million to step up security for MPs, but will it be enough? It's over fears politicians are being targeted by demonstrators and that things are getting worse.
We have to make an example of people who are doing this, otherwise it won't stop.
Also this lunchtime, Prince Harry loses his case against the Home Office, but we hear more on that car chase in New York. Cash-strapped councils and the north-south divide, why cuts will be deeper depending on where you live. Toilet training, how half of parents don't think the job is completely up to them, and move over croque monsieur, why the French are embracing the Great British.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good afternoon. Could some MPs be getting their own bodyguards under new plans to step up security for our politicians? The government has announced a £31 million package following fears that elected officials are being targeted and intimidated by demonstrators in recent months. The extra funding will go towards enhancing police capabilities as well as private security. Well, the Home Secretary James Cleverly says having to deal with harassment and threats is not part of the job of being a politician. But some MPs say it's worse than ever. With more, here's our political reporter, Jasmine Cameron-Chilishi.
From in-person intimidation to protest outside their homes, parliamentarians say harassment is fast becoming a regular occurrence.
Are you finding that you're having to contact the police more than you were previously?
Yeah, I contact the police on a regular basis.
And is that worrying for you?
Well, actually, I feel that it's comforting to know that I can, and to know that there is that protection there. I wish that I wish that we could be freer. You know, I wish that we could have complete sort of open surgeries, but we have to take precautions.
As security concerns grow, ministers have announced a £31 million package. This will include increased access to private security, while all elected representatives and candidates will have access to a dedicated named police contact, and local elected representatives will be given additional cybersecurity advice. The government says it will take a zero-tolerance approach to harassment.
No, we don't accept this as a new normal. That's why we're putting these protective measures in place. Members of Parliament, councillors, mayors and others should not have to suffer intimidation. It's unacceptable. We are going to stop it.
But some warn ongoing threats put people off entering politics.
We saw at the 2019 election that a lot of MPs, and particularly women and people from minority ethnic backgrounds, were choosing to stand down as MPs because of the amount of threat that they were facing, the amount of abuse that they were facing. If that is something that continues, then it obviously poses a big challenge for how truly representative our House of Commons can be.
The Home Secretary will meet with police chiefs today. In the meantime, questions remain as to what impact these proposals will have on MP safety. So the security of MPs has been rising up the political agenda. Now, this follows high-profile incidents such as the murder of Joe Cox in 2016. But following the October the 7th attacks, MPs of all political persuasions have been reporting an uptick in harassment and threats. The government hopes that today's package will help increase security of MPs. They're trying to get this balance right between protecting the right to protest and free speech and also supporting parliamentarians. But I think the worry among MPs is whether £31 million is actually enough to tackle the scale of threats that they've been seeing. And I also think the bigger worry is that perhaps this is a bit of a sticking plaster that doesn't really get to the root of why we've been seeing such an uptick towards our elected officials.
All right, Jasmine in Westminster, thank you. Next, Prince Harry has lost a high of security security he and his family receive when they are in the UK. The Duke of Sussex first took legal action over the matter 4 years ago. Our correspondent John Ray is outside the High Court for us this lunchtime. John, how's this been decided?
Well, of course, Harry's visits to these shores have become few and fleeting since he stepped back from full-time frontline royal duties, though that might, of course, change, Lou, since the news of his father's ill health. That was the reason he last came to the UK just a few weeks ago. But Prince Harry's lawyers have argued here that he's been singled out, that he's been downgraded in his security, and as a result, he and his family simply don't feel safe when they're here. The Home Office, which is ultimately responsible for these things, says, look, his security is now judged on a case-by-case basis, and in a lengthy written ruling at the High Court published this morning, the retired judge, Sir Peter Lane, came down pretty definitively in the government's favour, saying that the new bespoke security process is and was legally sound. Now, in a few words, that ups to a pretty big blow for Team Sussex.
Yeah, John, this case was about the level of protection that Prince Harry gets here in the UK, but also his broader security was discussed.
Yeah, viewers might well remember May of last year, and Prince Harry complained that in New York he, Meghan and Meghan's mother had been chased around the city there by a press pack for 2 hours. They said it was a near catastrophic experience. Now, in documents revealed during the course of the court case and made public today, it seems that the New York Police Department agree with his assessment. They said that the paparazzi acted in a reckless and very dangerous manner. But of course, that was the United States. This is the United Kingdom. We understand that Prince Harry will try to appeal against this decision today.
All right, John, at the High Court, thank you. Well, now, the scale of the crisis facing councils in England has been laid bare in new research shared exclusively with ITV News. It's found that 4 in 10 councils face financial collapse by the end of this decade. And it's also revealed huge regional disparities in local budgets and spending. Our deputy political editor, Anushka Rastana, joins us now. Anushka, what's the scale of this then?
I mean, we have known that there is a crisis in local government, but as we've got the budget next week, we've got a number of big groups coming out today, the Local Government Association, the Local Government Information Unit, saying this is now at crisis levels. And this analysis from Grant Thornton is really fascinating. It goes quite deep into this. If I just run you through some of the figures, they basically find that 127 English councils out of 313 could face financial failure by the end of the decade. In the south of England, that is 17% within a year and rising to 35% by 5 years. But if we look at the north of England, we're looking at almost double that in the first year, 30% in 1 year, 55% in 5 years. Now, what is financial failure? It means their savings fall below 5% of the amount they spend. And just to put that in context, when Birmingham reached 4.1%, that was when it issued that Section 114 notice, which now means residents are facing double the council tax and massive service cuts. So this is very, very serious. In terms of those regional differences, that north-south divide, people say to me it's partly because of austerity hitting northern councils much harder than it did some in the south, and also rising demand. How do councils cope with it? Well, they are moving money from budgets for things like transport, roads, so filling the potholes, from cultural services, and that includes parks and green spaces, but it also includes libraries and museums, and they are moving that money into the areas where they have a statutory need to fill adult social care and children's social care. It is a very bleak picture.
Yeah, very concerning for many. Anushka, thank you. Well, the crisis for our councils was not raised at Prime Minister's questions today, but angry exchanges about the behaviour of the former leaders of both main parties dominated instead. Carl Dinnan is in Westminster for us, and Carl, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer both see weaknesses in each other's predecessors.
Yeah, that's right. Although many people here have been obsessing over the words of Lee Anderson for the last few days, it was actually the words of Liz Truss that Keir Starmer wanted to put to the Prime Minister. Last week she was in the States where she said that she had been brought down by, quote, the deep state, and she'd also sat by while the far-right figure Tommy Robinson was praised without intervening. And that is what Keir Starmer put to the Prime Minister today.
She claimed that as Prime Minister she was sabotaged by the deep state. She also remained silent as Tommy Robinson was described as a hero. Why is he allowing her to stand as a Tory MP at the next election?
If he wants to talk about former leaders and predecessors, the whole country knows his record because he sat there while anti-Semitism ran rife in this party. And not once but twice backed a man who called Hamas friends. He's spineless, hopeless and utterly shameless.
Now, the Prime Minister quite correctly identifying there that although Keir Starmer did suspend Jeremy Corbyn, he did that having twice campaigned for him to be made Prime Minister. So both men do have a weakness in their former leaders, in their predecessors. I think it could be more of a problem for the Prime Minister, though, because Liz Truss is still a Conservative MP and is still going out there defending her record and coming up with some theories that frankly verge on conspiracy theories about why she was pushed out of office. And at the same time, she is still one of the least popular politicians in the country, and a reminder to many people of why support has been draining away from the Conservative Party.
All right, Carl, thank you. Still ahead this lunchtime.
This isn't drama. This is real life.
Olivia Colman warns that Britain's housing crisis is threatening human rights. And whose job is it to do the potty training? A report says half of parents don't think getting their child school ready is their sole responsibility. But first, thousands of farmers from across Wales have descended on Cardiff Bay today to protest against the Welsh Government's future subsidy plans. The Sustainable Farming Scheme will require farmers to ensure 10% of their land is set aside for trees. Well, Rhys Williams is at the protest for us. And Rhys, a lot of anger about this. Why?
Yes, indeed. Many of the farmers I've been speaking with today and who've been making speeches here on the steps of the Senedd say that this plan, and in particular that requirement to cover 10% of their land with trees, is not sustainable for most farms. They've been travelling here to Cardiff Bay in tractors and in coaches from every corner of the country, many thousands of them arriving here. They say that they're fighting for their livelihoods, and they say they've got a message for the Welsh Government, and that message is clear.
At the moment, no one's going to take the scheme up, so we're going to see no environmental benefit. There's certain things missing in this scheme that could really improve Wales as a nation, both sustainably and in terms of farming, and this scheme just does none of that. It's completely all or nothing, and no one's going to do it.
Now, the Welsh Government say that these proposals are just that, and that there is a consultation phase ongoing at the moment, and they will listen to feedback. But it's clear that hasn't reassured farmers here, and the relationship between the government and the farming community is at an all-time low. In particular, many are unhappy with comments made by the First Minister Mark Drakeford recently, and earlier I asked the Rural Affairs Minister whether those comments had undermined her role.
No, not at all, and I don't think he has done that. I mean, when he was talking about, all farmers have voted to leave the European Union, you'll hear a lot of people say that. Of course, it's not true. We can't generalise in that way. But, a significant number. Should the First Minister be saying it, then? Well, I think, when you're on your feet and you say, he was just referring, I think, in general to farmers.
Now, the Welsh Government says it acknowledged it will have to make changes to this scheme, but what those changes are and how significant they'll be, we don't yet know.
All right, Rhys in Cardiff, thank you. Star of The Crown, Olivia Colman, and actor Adrian Lester are supporting a call from Amnesty International that everyone in the country should live in a home free of black mould. The pair feature in a campaign film about a mother whose daughter dies as a result of poor housing standards. A new law was brought in to protect people living in social housing after 2-year-old Awab Ishak died in Rochdale after he was exposed to mould. Faye Barker has more.
Used to be a lawyer, right?
A dramatisation of a very real problem.
Practiced in years.
This Amnesty International film stars Olivia Colman and Adrian Lester. The story of a woman in mouldy temporary accommodation, a place her baby cannot survive.
She's dead. She couldn't breathe in that place.
Well, what do you want me to say, Mary? I grew up in a council flat with black mould. I'm an asthmatic. I hope that this subject can raise awareness at the highest levels. And it's hard for us to think of it in terms of human rights and violations, but it is.
In 2020, the death of 2-year-old Awab Ishak caused outrage. He suffered from a respiratory condition caused by mould at his housing association in Greater Manchester.
We will be pressing ahead with changes to the law.
Changes were promised a year ago when Awab's law came into force, meaning councils and landlords must fix hazardous homes quickly. But is this working? In South London today, mum of 2, Joy Osachukwu, told us mould in her temporary home is making her children ill.
Most of the time I try to clean it myself, but it keeps coming back. No matter how I try to open the window, do the cleaning myself. The kids they're always sick. Most of the time they have rashes, it's rash, they have cough, they have constant cough, yeah.
The government says it's given councils £1 billion over 3 years to tackle homelessness, targeted where it's needed most.
This isn't drama, this is real life.
For those campaigning for basic human rights and those living in challenging conditions, any change can't come soon enough.
It's time to tune in.
Faye Barker, ITV News.
Now, when it comes to potty training our children, whose responsibility is it? A new poll shows up to half of parents don't think that is up to them. The report by a charity looking at reception-aged children in England and Wales found that some teachers are having to spend as much as 2.5 hours a day supporting those who are, and that includes not being toilet trained and struggling to hold a pencil. Stacey Foster reports.
When these children started school in September, around 13% of them weren't toilet trained, and that number is increasing. Research shows that teachers are now spending on average 2.5 hours of the school day changing nappies or dealing with similar issues because children are struggling with the basics.
So I've been teaching 14 years and the change is massive.
Is it the job of a reception teacher to be changing nappies?
It probably isn't listed on the job description, but it is part of looking after, supporting those children. Unless research is done, I don't think we're ever going to know what the causes are and whether this is going to continue or not.
The annual survey of 1,000 teachers and 1,000 parents of reception-aged children found 1 in 4 are starting school not toilet trained. More than a third can't dress themselves, and 93% of teachers say their school is increasing or reallocating resources to manage the issue.
Blow. Blow.
6 months in, and the youngest at Shackleton Primary are making progress. They're in close contact with parents, but have also added extra learning support assistants. There is much discussion in classrooms nationwide about what's caused the change and how to solve it. The report found half of parents think more affordable childcare could help.
I think that will help because that burden will not be transferred onto reception. That would have been dealt with during nursery. And yeah, that's the only way. Otherwise, what can you do? Parents will need to fend for their families.
But 50% of parents also said it wasn't solely their responsibility to toilet train their children.
To be a parent, there's no textbook. You have to learn it yourself. But I personally believe kids should know these things by the time they reach reception.
The government's extending its funded childcare offer for eligible 2-year-olds in April. But this latest challenge for teachers is worrying, and it's taking more resources out of the classroom. Stacey Foster, ITV News, Bedford.
Joe Biden and Donald Trump both won in their latest primaries, making it even more likely there will be the respective presidential candidates in November. Michigan is the last major primary state to vote. As a swing state, it could be a key indicator in who wins the race for the White House. Hundreds have been evacuated and a nuclear weapons facility shut down as wildfires sweep across northern Texas. It's left properties across Hutchinson County damaged after doubling in 24 hours. Strong winds and warm, dry conditions have contributed to its spread. And Adele has postponed the March date of her Las Vegas residency due to illness. The singer apologised for the inconvenience on social media. She said she'd not fully recovered after becoming unwell at the end of the last series of her Vegas shows. Finally, the British staple that is quickly becoming the new wave in France. While the croque monsieur may well have dominated French palates for many years, it would seem the humble cheese toastie is gaining in popularity. It became the unlikely star of a cooking contest in Paris, challenging all perceptions of cheese supremacy. Layla Hayes has more.
Le salon du fromage et des produits laitiers 2024, c'est maintenant et c'est parti.
The French are, of course, connoisseurs of cheese. They have more than 1,000 different varieties. But it seems they're now going gooey for a new type of delicacy. The humble British cheese toastie. It's no surprise to the staff at this cafe in East London. They say it's all about how you make it.
The cheese comes from Longlands Farm in Yeovil, 2 different types of cheddar, mixed with bechamel to make it extra creamy. And then it changes every 8 weeks, our toastie, with seasonality and different types of really good produce. So local and community focused always makes things extra tasty, I think.
At this cheese fair in Paris, they've now introduced the first ever international toastie competition. A sign, perhaps, that the croque monsieur isn't the only big cheese now. Back in East London, customers are going wild for a cheese and leek version.
It's delicious. I like the cheese and the leek together. They go really well. It's quite a full meal, all in one. Really nice.
Modest sandwich or gastronomic delight. The cheese toastie is now going global. Layla Hayes, ITV News.
I'll be back tomorrow lunchtime, but that's it for now. Mary is here with the evening news at 6:30. The news where you are is next. Bye-bye for now.